Currently, it is 55 degrees here on the campus of Florissant Valley Community College. I'm Jell with your noon news update. I-270 closes as police deal with an emotionally distressed man. In Town & Country, Missouri, a police standoff closed Interstate 270 for about 90 minutes Monday morning. I-270 was shut down between Manchester and Interstate 64/40 while police negotiated with a man in a red pickup truck who refused to get out. Police played it safe. St. Louis County SWAT responded with a negotiator, and they successfully resolved the situation. Authorities eventually discovered the man did not have a weapon. In St. Charles, Missouri, and really quite a few other places, heavy rain and rising rivers have some people across the area taking steps to prepare. Things are soaked from St. Charles County to Jefferson County and beyond. More rain is in the forecast for Tuesday, and rising river levels and flooding have become a concern. And a St. Louis City Muslim community will get to build a new mosque after all. The final decision comes after a year of pushback and opposition from some concerned neighbors regarding Quba Mosque. Members have been pushing to build a one-story mosque on a vacant lot it owns at Allen and South Jefferson Avenues, which is at the edge of the city's McKinley Heights Historic District. In national news, federal authorities say a man is under arrest accused of sending half a dozen suspicious packages to military installations and government buildings in the Washington, D.C. area. Officials would only say the suspect was from the Pacific Northwest. A package sent to the National Defense University at Fort McNair in D.C. yesterday morning contained explosive material. The package was rendered safe and no one was hurt. 5 other packages were found at the CIA's mail sorting facility, the White House mail sorting facility, a Navy building in Virginia, and 2 facilities at Fort Belvoir in Virginia. Russia is warning of retaliation following the expulsion of dozens of Russian officials from more than 20 countries. About 60 Russians are being expelled from the U.S. The moves are a response to the recent poisoning of an ex-spy and his daughter in Great Britain. Russia has denied involvement in the attempted murders. California is taking the Trump administration to court over a change to the 2020 U.S. Census. The U.S. Commerce Department yesterday announced that it will include a question about citizenship status, arguing that it will protect minority voting rights. California's Democratic AG says including a citizenship question is not just a bad idea, it's illegal. And Apple is showcasing a new iPad that is cheaper and geared towards students. Speaking at an event at Lane Tech College Prep High School in Chicago today, Apple CEO Tim Cook said the new iPad comes with an Apple Pencil and will cost $329 for consumers and $299 for schools. It features a new 9.7-inch high-resolution touch system. And now, the weather. When it doesn't crash. My weather has crashed, I'm sorry. It's raining. Okay, so today, raining, high of 55, low of 42. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, high of 57, low of 47. Thursday, hey, more rain, high of 54, low of 38. Friday, though, will be mostly sunny, with a high of 57 and a low of 39. Then Saturday, we're going to get more showers, for high of 55, low of 34. Sunday, evening showers, high of 42, low of 29. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday next week will just be mostly cloudy. But then Saturday, the rain will come again. And it is looking like Sunday is going to be the coldest day of the week at a high of 42, low of 29. But for the most part, yeah, we're in the mid-40s to mid-50s. It's kind of spring-like. We're getting there. Anyway, currently it's 55 degrees here at KCFV. I'm Jell, and this has been your noon news update. And please stay tuned, because after a short break and a Women's History Month update, we will have GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Until then, here's a Women's History Month update, followed by Comeback by This Is Energy, here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. That was Comeback by This Is Energy, here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. So, we like to kick the show off with new games released this week, what's coming next week, and what anime are in theaters. So let's kick that off right now. This week, PlayStation 4, yesterday, Batman the Enemy Within Episode 5 Same Stitch and X-Morph Defense European Assault came out. Today, Atelier Lydian Sewell, The Alchemists and the Mysterious Paintings came out, along with Bit Dungeon Plus, Bridge Constructor Stunts, Far Cry 5, Injustice 2 Legendary Edition, MLB The Show 18, MX vs. ATV All Out, The 25th Ward, The Silver Case Limited Edition, and The Witch and the 100 Knight 2, along with Trove Heroes. Tomorrow, Roller Coaster Tycoon Joyride comes out, which is a PlayStation VR game that I hear is terrible. Some people got some early copies, and were streaming it last night. We'll talk a little more about that later. But, thankfully, also tomorrow is Tempest 4000 from Jeff Minter, so that's at least something to look forward to. And then the day after tomorrow is Atari Flashback Classics Volume 3 of Mice and Sand Revised and Preda Vendetta Rising, which I'm actually very excited about. That's sort of a Diablo clone with optional VR support. I was really hoping that would come out today, but apparently that'll be Thursday. And then Friday, Code Realize, Bouquet of Rainbows, Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight, and Thimbleweed Park will be coming out. On Xbox One, Batman the Enemy Within Episode 5 Same Stitch and X-Morph Defense European Assault also came out yesterday, and today, Far Cry 5, Injustice 2 Legendary Edition, MX vs. ATV All Out, PixARK, a game preview version of whatever that is. I should probably look that up. Trove Heroes, and then on Friday, Alteric comes out. On Nintendo Switch, today, Atelier Liddy and Sewell, The Alchemist and the Mysterious Paintings comes out. The first Atelier game on the Switch, which is very compelling. Hopefully it turned out nice. D-Generation HD, Outlast 2, and Warp Shift all came out today. And then on Thursday, Bad Dudes vs. Dragon Ninja comes out for Nintendo Switch, as well as Cluster Puck 99, the Fire Emblem Warriors Awakening Pack, Gacha Racing 2, for some reason they have this listed as Tengai for Nintendo Switch, but it's also known as Sengoku Blade. It is the sequel to Sengoku Ace, side-scrolling shooter from Psycho, very nice. Also, The Adventures of Bertram Fiddle Episode 1, A Dreadly Business, The Charming Empire, which looks like it is a dating sim for the ladies, and a game called Zombilly. And then on the 30th, Alteric, Devious Dungeon, Farm Expert 2018 for Nintendo Switch, Redout, Shadowbug, Thimbleweed Park, and Tokitori. And on Easter, Spartan comes out. Anyway, moving on to the 3DS, today the Alliance Alive comes out, which is supposed to be a very Saga series-inspired RPG. I've heard some relatively good things about it. Along with Dodge Club Pocket. 29th Dodge Club Pocket comes out, along with Fire Emblem Warriors Awakening Pack and Waku Waku Sweets Happy Sweets Making. And on the PlayStation Vita, today Bit Dungeon Plus comes out. On the 29th, Reverie, and on the 30th, Code Realize, Future Blessings. Coming out next week, on the 3rd, is for PlayStation 4, is Minute and the Adventure Pals, followed by Raiders of the Broken Planet, Hades Betrayal, aka OMG, they're actually updating that freaking game. Raiders of the Broken Planet was something I poked at. It's a very interesting game in that it's a 4-player co-op third-person shooter with some AAA production values that they're selling episodically. Unfortunately, I had some beef with it due to the fact that, you could only play 4-player. You couldn't just play 2-player. And, that's gonna cause some problems. And, let me see something. Okay, that'll be next week. Not a lot announced for next week yet. On the Xbox One, Minute, Terra Online, which I think just came out kind of sort of for PlayStation 4, and The Adventure Pals comes out, along with Really? Okay. 4th of next month, Dan Gun Feveron hits Xbox One. I assume that's going to hit PlayStation 4 as well. I know it has a PS4 release in Japan. If you're unfamiliar, Dan Gun Feveron is a top-down shooter, looks like a traditional space shooter, except it's all disco-themed. All disco music, you catch flashing, dancing, rainbow disco people, and when you beat a stage, a giant disco ball comes down and everyone dances. It's very odd because it looks completely normal until you hear the sound and the announcer shouting, "The enemy's here inside our soul!" It's a pretty strange game. I know it's going to be kind of expensive, though. Tempted, though. Metropolis Lux Obscura, sorry, got sidetracked there, and Raiders of the Broken Planet Hades Betrayal, along with Dead Ahead Zombie Warfare, will all be coming out next week for the Xbox One. Nintendo Switch, what you got next week? Penny Punching Princess and the Adventure Pals, followed by Metropolis Lux Obscura, and then you're listing Penny Punching Princess again, that's good. And Animated Jigsaw's Beautiful Japanese Scenery, Sling Ming, Super Rocket Shootout, and Urban Trial Playground, along with The Bunker, Masters of Anima, and Super Daryl Deluxe. Masters of Anima and Super Daryl Deluxe are week after next. Sorry about that. 3DS doesn't have anything planned for next week. Doesn't have anything planned for next month. Vita, though, next week is getting Penny Punching Princess, and that's about it. That concludes our new games this week and next week. As for anime in theaters, all we've got is Ponyo tomorrow at 7 p.m. dubbed. If you're interested, we've got a new Ghibli Fest at the end of every month. There is going to be new Ghibli movies in theaters. Beyond that, there's a smattering of things announced, but I haven't seen too terribly much really coming out on the horizon, but we shall see, because, of course, things can pop up out of nowhere. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us for the new game release and anime in theater report. We will take a short break, and when we get back, we will get to the video game news and information, which I warn you, slow news week, but I've still got some things to say. Anyway, here's Lost Within by Fivefold here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. That was Lost Within by Fivefold here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Hello, I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. So, video game news, it is a slow news week. It's actually kind of surprising because traditionally there's usually a lot of weird Japanese games that come out just before March 30th because that's my birthday. Now, there's usually like a bunch of stuff that makes me go, oh, I'm super excited. Look at all these crazy things. But this time, no, they got them all out February or are delayed till April. So we will see those when we get to them. Anyway, let's see what we've got for news. First and foremost, Super Bomberman R is coming to Xbox One and PS4 with exclusive bombers. Xbox One will get a Master Chief Bomber, and there will be a Ratchet Bomber for PS4. The question is, will Nintendo get an exclusive bomber patched in? Super Bomberman R was actually a Nintendo Switch launch title, and it was the first new Bomberman we had seen in a long while. And while it launched disappointingly, much to everyone's shock, Konami actually patched it like crazy, adding in new bombers, including Princess Tomato Bomber, which, as in from Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom. I couldn't believe it either. There's like a Pyramid Head Bomber and a bunch of other bombers. I think there's a Jehuti Bomber. I remember there's a Reiko Hinomoto Bomber from Rumble Roses. So, they patched in a bunch of new Bomberman characters. I think there's a Vic Viper Bomber. And then they improved the game, added a bunch of new modes, and now it's going to come to all the other systems. But the question is, will they throw Nintendo? But I mean, come on. You don't just say, oh, well, the PS4 and Xbox One releases are better because they're going to have their own exclusive bombers. No, come on. Give us a Mario Bomber, or a Splatoon Bomber, or a Pikachu Bomber. Come on. Don't be that guy. Konami's known for being that guy, though. Anyway, Fire Pro Wrestling World is set to hit PS4 this summer. This is very good. I have been talking about Fire Pro Wrestling in the past because it hit PC early access, and I did pick it up on PC. And I think that's going to be one of the problems, is that I'm not sure how the PS4 one can top the PC one because of the Steam Workshop support on PC made it really easy to get piles of wrestlers. If you've never played a Fire Pro Wrestling is a really weird wrestling series in that it's all 2D. It's all 2D, sprite rotation-based, very retro-looking wrestlers, but it is legendary for having really nice, very customizable AI and having incredible character creation options. It's a wrestling game that you look at it on the surface and you're like, eh, and then you play it and you're like, ah. That is the heart and soul of Fire Pro Wrestling. It went on hiatus for a while, and now it's back with Fire Pro Wrestling World. And yeah, on Steam, you can just go in there, search up wrestlers, click, 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 download, download, download. Next thing you know, you've got 500 wrestlers all saved to your hard drive, because they're like 15 kilobyte files, because they're 2D, and it's really just the instructions to put them together and stuff. So yeah, like, it's really hard to top Fire Pro Wrestling World on PC, but we'll see how PS4 does. I'd like to play it on a console, but it is, man, I don't know how you top the PC release. Moving right along, though, this is probably something only I care about. Happy Manager has indeed patched in its VR, but to what degree is still unknown. For the uninitiated, Happy Manager is a Japanese-only VR dating sim, or at least it was supposed to be, but at the last minute they cut out VR support due to technical reasons and said they would patch it back in later. Watching some gameplay footage of the game, it is utterly embarrassing because it is flagrantly a VR game with the teleport movement and a lot of look at a thing, hold a button to do a thing, except with the VR removed. And I can't get a good answer as to how far the added-in VR support goes. Where does the VR support cut off? Is it really just a character model viewer in VR, or can I play most of the game in VR with only a few parts? It's hard to say, and I can't get a straight answer out of much of anyone, because most people were sensible enough not to buy the game. Guess I'm gonna wait until it's on discount. Moving right along. Ooh, this is the big news. As of yesterday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, you can no longer buy Nintendo Wii points. Not Nintendo points, the Wii points. The Wii shop will be closing down forever in January. And as part of their plan to shut down the shop, they have removed the ability to purchase points, whether it is by Wii Point card or by Visa card. You cannot get Wii points anymore. The button is gone. The intent, of course, is, hey, spend your last remaining points, re-download any games you've deleted, because we are closing up shop never to return again, leaving hundreds of WiiWare titles to vanish into the ether, at least legally. You know, there's loopholes. Where there's a will, there's a way. But this is the kind of thing that should hopefully make people rethink their thoughts on digital distribution. Anyway, it is time for a short break, and when we get back, we will continue our video game news and information here on GameBabble Live. Until then, here's Too Much Stereo by The Urge, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Thank you so much for listening. That was Bounce by Contact here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. Welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. So, yeah, as I was saying before the break, yes, you can't get your WiiWare games anymore. They are, well, if you already bought them, you can download them. If you already have points, you can still grab a few. But yeah, you can't buy points anymore. Shop's shutting down in January, and I hope this serves as a wake-up call to many people who are in favor of digital distribution, to which I'm sure they'll say LOL PCs, to which I say, yes, Steam makes digital distribution much, much more plausible. I don't think anyone wants to think about the horrible nightmare future where Steam goes away. Nothing lasts forever. One of these days, either Steam is going to shut down, or, arguably worse, Microsoft could buy them. Like, I've been thinking about that, because some idiot wrote an article about how Microsoft should totally buy Steam, and it's like, yeah, that's the worst idea ever. Because I'm just remembering what happened to Skype. Skype used to work really well, and then Microsoft bought it, and now it's a freaking dumpster fire. So, yeah! I want you to just spend a moment thinking about Steam owned by Microsoft. At first, it would be like, oh, there's not really any changes, and then all of a sudden the interface would get terrible and utterly unmanageable. It would be caked with ads, and it would just get really dumb really fast. I'm still grumpy about the Xbox One interface, which is one of my main reasons for not using the Xbox One. It's terrible. I can't make any sense of it. I don't know how to join a party on Xbox One. It's terrible. But yes, WiiWare is indeed shutting down. All the games will be gone, possibly forever, unless you know some illegal backdoor tricks. And quite a few games have actually already been pulled. Believe it or not, I spent yesterday working on an episode. Yes, I know, shock, I haven't put out a new proper episode in like months. And then I decide to put out an episode on a mediocre basketball game that no one can buy. A game called Hoop World. It was supposed to be one of the first Xbox Live Arcade games, got delayed, showed up 4 years later on WiiWare, drastically changed, yet still clearly Hoop World. And it was mysteriously pulled from the WiiWare store sometime between November and January. I don't know why. But so that one you just can't get at all anymore. There's so many exclusives on the WiiWare store, and I know a lot of people look at it and go, but the big ones for me are the Konami Rebirth series. Gradius Rebirth, Castlevania Rebirth, and Contra Rebirth. Which, weirdly, when they came out, they received incredibly middling to negative reviews. People were just like, these aren't good enough, even though they're cheap downloadables. And for me, it's like, these are some of my favorites of their respective series. Admittedly, didn't play Gradius Rebirth. But Castlevania Rebirth, look, I'm just going to be honest, I don't like the Metroidvanias. And they pretty much stopped making classic Castlevania. And then Castlevania Rebirth comes out. Technically, Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth, it's quote-unquote a remake of the first Game Boy game, but it's so drastically different from that. I've played the Game Boy game. It's so drastically different from Castlevania The Adventure on Game Boy that it is effectively a completely new game, and is the first classic stage-based Castlevania released since, like, 1995, okay? Castlevania Chronicles was a port of the Sharp X6800 game. So, yeah, it was the most I had enjoyed Castlevania since 1995. It's not, like, the best, but it's really good, and I love how they implemented the Fire Whip in that game. Because one of the weird things about all three of the Game Boy Castlevanias was that the last upgrade caused your whip to shoot a fireball. And they were like, you know what, we're going to leave that in there. You get one whip upgrade, you already have Vampire Killer, then you grab another one and it can shoot fireballs, but we'll make it where it's time limited and it doesn't cover the entire screen, but it is, like, powerful and covers more of the screen. I thought that was a great compromise. Made Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth something special, on top of the fact that they actually made new sprites for it. A lot of the Metroidvanias have been recycling the Dracula X Rondo of Blood sprites from 1995, like, ever since then. So it was nice to see these new sprites that were incredibly well animated, and a lot of people were just like, this is completely pointless. Stage-based Castlevania is dumb. Contra Rebirth got it even worse, because Contra Rebirth came out at almost the exact same time as the beloved Contra 4 on DS, which is actually by Way Forward, the makers of Shantae. And I know Matt Bozon's favorite game of all time is Contra 3, The Alien Wars, and so it was a wonderful dream project that they got to make that game. The thing is, I just wasn't a fan of it. To be blunt, I'm not really that big a fan of Contra. But when Contra Rebirth came out, a lot of people just snubbed it because, it's not as good as Contra 4. And I'm playing it, and it is actually my favorite Contra of all time. Again, not a big Contra guy, but I loved it. It was kind of goofy. There's a scene where you're, like, riding on giant robot llamas while fighting a ninja robot hanging off of a missile. It's a little on the crazy side. Around that time, Konami decided to get really weird with their Contra games. But it's full of great set pieces, and I felt it was the most fun I'd ever had with Contra. It was very explosive. Maybe it's one of the easier Contras. I'll give it that. But it was really good, and it's my favorite Contra game. It's gone now. I mean, it's not like Konami's going to re-release these things. I mean, they could. Not like they're going to. You can't count on Konami to do much of anything. They should. All of these should be put on Switch, and I would gladly buy them again on Switch if they did, like, shoot, even just releasing them individually. I'd like a Rebirth collection, but whatever. Konami does need to re-release these, but there's no guarantee that they will. And that's a darn shame. So yes, we have lost a lot with the purge of the WiiWare store. And I really do hope it causes people to reflect. It's been kind of funny, too. Because, of course, darn near every video game YouTuber is hopping on this bandwagon where they're like, oh, I gotta go to the WiiWare store and download games right now. And it actually apparently caused the WiiWare store, it caused people to be unable to connect to the store because there was such a rush of people getting their last-minute games. Because, of course, everyone had some game they were putting off to the last minute to purchase, and now, well, it's the last minute. Thankfully, I downloaded most of my WiiWare games before all of that, but still, more than a bit of a shame. Moving right along, though, because I've focused on that for a while. Speaking of digital things shutting down, Noctis's smartphone game, although really more of Prompto's smartphone game, King's Knight. That is shutting down June 26th. Okay, this one has some history behind it. Way back on NES, one of Squaresoft's first games was a weird RPG shooter hybrid that purportedly wasn't even very good, called King's Knight. Recently, they decided to do a smartphone remake of King's Knight, just titled King's Knight, and they patched it into Final Fantasy 15, where all the characters in the game would play King's Knight on their smartphone and talk about it, and they had little quotes about getting 5-star characters, and sometimes when you went to rest, they would play King's Knight on their phone together, and it was a thing, and shutting down. Amusingly, that is the second Final Fantasy 15 advertised smartphone game to be shut down. The other one was Justice Monsters 5, which you can still play in Final Fantasy 15. It's like a weird pinball machine within the game. But the smartphone version of that shut down, and now King's Knight's shutting down, and that was only active for like a year. Maybe you should stop advertising your smartphone games in Final Fantasy 15, or maybe you should stop making these ridiculously finite smartphone games. Moving right along, let's talk about something truly wacky. New Gundam Breaker, which is actually the title of the game, launches in the West June 22nd on both PS4 and PC. If you've never played a Gundam Breaker game, Gundam Breaker 3 actually got an English Asian release, but this is actually going to get a US release. And the idea behind Gundam Breaker, it was kind of Gundam Monster Hunter. And the idea is that it's the far future where it's kind of based on build fighters. Where it's the far future and they have the technology to bring plastic models to life with some kind of particles. They're probably Minovsky particles. Anyway, somehow they can bring plastic models to life and people battle their plastic Gundam models. And you can mix and match the parts, and basically the whole point of Gundam Breaker is you take your Gundam and you break other Gundams to steal their parts and customize your Gundam. And it's super fun. The only downer is that there is no versus mode in this. They're claiming there's going to be a versus mode in this. It's not. It's like whoever can beat the boss the fastest or something. Like, it is very much a co-op, work together, a more action RPG-ish Gundam game. It's not really a mech combat game, which is a little disappointing because I would love to fight some of these mechs. You can make some gorgeous looking things in this game. I've had a blast with Gundam Breaker 3, and New Gundam Breaker will be the first one to actually properly come to America. Also first one that's not on Vita, so we're seeing a huge graphical upgrade. In fact, now The Gundam models actually look like plastic. The environments look way more detailed. And super excitingly, they have environments based on, like, the real world, like Gundam model kit stores and school locker rooms and people's bedrooms and stuff. So that way you get a sense of the scale and you're like, oh wow, I'm playing as a toy Gundam fighting other toy Gundams in the middle of the floor. But they'll also have, like, the cool environments and stuff. The stuff that actually makes you forget that you're playing as a plastic toy. Anyway, this is what has me really amused, is the fact that the new Gundam Breaker, the first one to come to America, has announced that there are 6 different heroines that you can fall in love with because there will apparently be dating sim elements in this one. Here's the plot. The story follows taking this off of Silicon Era. The story follows the protagonist who recently transferred to the private Gundam Breaker Academy. He gets swept up in a slew of Gunpla snatching battles led by the evil organization Laplace Nest, and must build his own strongest Gunpla in order to take them on. Gundam Model Kit Building Academy, everyone. This is the one with dating sim elements. This is the one they decide to be the first one to bring to America. Sure. Yep. We do it. We do it. And, this is kind of important, Swery's The Good Life is up on Kickstarter, which I think is relatively important. Let's see. Good. And thankfully it's making good progress. It just went up. If you're unfamiliar, Swery is the crazy guy who made the infamous Deadly Premonition, a low-budget horror game that was originally released on 360, then ported to everything else. And it was kind of buggy and shaky, but the story was really good and weird, with lots of strange characters. It was very flagrantly inspired by Twin Peaks. And yeah, people just fell in love with how weird the game was. And at first it's just, haha, look at all these wacky characters, haha, FK in the coffee clears a crisp spring day. You know, at first it's, and you know, he's always talking to himself, or to Zach, whoever Zach is. We find out who Zach is, actually. But, yes, he's always talking to himself, and it's just, it's this weird, wacky game, and then as you get further in, it kind of gets heavy and weirder, with the giant dogs falling from the sky. That was unexpected. Anyway, The Good Life is going to be Swery's newest game, and he is actually teaming up with the guy behind Panzer Dragoon to make it. In the game, you play a news reporter woman who goes to what is said to be the happiest town in the world, only to find out that there has been a murder there. Unfortunately, you get into incredible debt, and now you have to find a way to pay off your debt by doing odd jobs while trying to solve the murder and do various news reports. But to make things even stranger, at night, all the citizens of the town, including yourself, turn into either a cat or a dog. You get to pick at the beginning of the game. And yeah, just for some mysterious reason, everyone's turning into cats and dogs, and we don't know why. The game was previously kickstarted on Fig, but Fig is a weird thing where you have to pay large sums of money to be, like, a literal investor. I don't know if it went through or only half went through. Either way, they've been working on the game. They've got some comparison videos up showing how much progress they've made. It's looking good. And yeah, I'm seeing good progress on the Kickstarter numbers. You know, it's not doing gangbusters like Mighty Number 9 and Shenmue 3. But I am pretty confident this game will indeed make it out. And I'm certainly interested in possibly throwing some backer bucks on this one, because I like Swery, and this looks like the kind of game we need. Because the worst part of Deadly Premonition was when it tried to be an action game and you tried to shoot things. The idea of a game where you just chill out in a town and do odd jobs with strange characters while trying to solve a murder mystery and everyone turns into cats, yeah, that sounds like it'll turn out much better. So I'm kind of interested in that one. And yeah, that is up on Kickstarter. Anyway, time for another quick break. Let me see. Anything else worth reporting before we take the break? No, I think that's good. We'll talk about Roller Coaster Tycoon Joyride after the break. But until then, here's Brand Spankin' Blue by the Jeremiah Johnson Band here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more GameBabble Live here on 89. That was Top Off by DJ Khaled featuring Jay-Z, Future, and Beyonce here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. And just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier, I stumbled across something pretty crazy. Remember that shooter I was talking about with the disco music? The inexplicable disco-themed shooter? Yeah, no, it just got weirder. Apparently, in Japan, they're releasing a game called Feveron Gakuen. A game about going to school with cute girls who teach you how to play Dangun Feveron. Created by the guy behind Twinkle Star Sprites and featuring art by the person behind Twinkle Star Sprites La Petite Princesse and Doki Doki Majo Shinpan. Okay! Well, that's a game that's happening, apparently. Also, Street Fighter V is apparently getting some Darkstalkers costumes for Juri, Urien, and Manat. Juri gets a Lilith costume, Urien gets a Donovan costume, and Manat gets a sexy Anakaris costume. They're really trying to get me to buy Street Fighter V. I'm this close. I kind of want to. I kind of know that I'm going to be angry with it in the end. It's getting a little hard to restrain myself, but I know better. I know better. Anyway, I was going to tell you about Roller Coaster Tycoon Joyride. I did not get to catch much of the stream, but everyone is pretty much saying it is a dumpster fire. It is not a full Roller Coaster Tycoon game. It is just a VR spin-off, where you build a roller coaster and then you ride on it and shoot at little targets placed all over your roller coaster. Which sounds like it could be fun, except apparently the roller coaster editor is a bit of a mess, and shooting at the different targets is boring. And you can't use the roller coaster editor in VR. It's just riding the roller coaster that's in VR. And it's done entirely with the DualShock 4. Like, even the shooting, it's just aim with the DualShock 4. It doesn't have any move support. It seems like just a pretty slapped-together little VR spin-off. This isn't surprising to the hardcore Roller Coaster Tycoon fans who have given up on the franchise. Apparently, Atari has just utterly been mishandling it. The latest roller toaster. Roller toasters. Okay, hold on. I need to take a moment because the idea of roller toasters is amazing. But no, the latest Roller Coaster Tycoon has apparently been a massive disappointment. I'm just hearing this secondhand from fans. I hear it's a massive disappointment, and I do remember their ridiculous Kickstarter not Kickstarter. Was it a Kickstarter? Yeah, I think they had a Kickstarter to try to get Roller Coaster Tycoon onto the Nintendo Switch, which is the most ludicrous thing ever. This is made by Atari. They are a company. They have money, and technically Atari was bought out by Natsume, and I actually kind of like Natsume. They're Atari Natsume now. And they're a real company with actual money. What in the heck are you doing a Kickstarter to try to get your game on Switch? Fund it yourself, you losers. Seriously. Should be ashamed of themselves. Then again, Atari has been embarrassing themselves. Anyone remember the Atari box? They're like, oh yeah, Atari's gonna do a new console, but we're gonna kickstart it, and if it fails, it's all your fault. Ha! No! Show us your console in action. What can it do? Don't just say, we have new console, please give us money. What are you doing with all... Some people do not know how crowdfunding is supposed to work. Most people don't know how crowdfunding is supposed to work. And that goes to both sides of it, too. A lot of people don't get that the product is not always guaranteed. You're taking a risk. Things can change. And that, yeah, You're not supposed to be buying the bonus content. You're supposed to be giving money to a project because you want that project to succeed. Regardless, it gets embarrassing when, like, big companies try to get people to fund them on Kickstarter. And, yeah, especially for a Switch port. Really? So yeah, Roller Coaster Tycoon, the big thing with it is if it was like super cheap, maybe it'd be kind of entertaining, but it's not. It's to the point where some people are even saying Roller Coaster Dreams is better. Now, Roller Coaster Dreams is infamous. It was a very early PlayStation VR game coming out of China, and it was a flagrant, like, Roller Coaster Tycoon type game ripoff. But it is very poorly made, full of broken English, and robotic-looking characters, but you could walk around your park. Oh, excuse me. You could walk around your park, and when you did, it was all just a buggy mess, but it had no actual restraints. So you could actually, like, get on a Ferris wheel and go so fast that it looks like the game is running backwards, which I would love to see what that looks like in VR. And yeah, people are like, no, Roller Coaster Dreams is a better game than Roller Coaster Tycoon Joyride. This is extra disappointing because this is following the disappointment that was Ark Park last week, which was a full-priced game and was a joke, and that was following Bravo Team, which was a full-price game sometimes bundled with the PlayStation Aim, and that was a joke. March has been a bad month for VR gamers, but February was really good. We got, Moss, Sprint Vector, Knockout League, and Apex Construct, along with a bunch of other games like Blasters of the Universe. We got a bunch of good games up until Bravo Team came out. So at least we got that. March is a clunky month, and it's kind of sad because there are people going, this is going to hurt VR. What is Sony Quality Control doing? And I'm like, you know what? Let them be, because Sony Quality Control is the worst quality control. Don't touch it. It's a long story, and maybe I'll get into it later if I'm desperate today, because I am so short on news. But Sony Computer Entertainment America's quality control left a deep scar on the video game industry and destroyed many franchises that I love because of how misguided and mismanaged it was. You do not want to tell Sony to do quality control. Sony does not know how to do quality control. Just let the crap games happen. I have seen the worst quality control can do. Sometimes it's better not to have it. I know that sounds strange. Just too many things that I love were destroyed by Sony quality control. Don't ask them to use quality control, please. But yes, it's been a little shaky. Thankfully, at least the Hong Kong store had some entertaining VR titles. It had one called Dark Legion and one called Ranch Planet, and I have no clue what Ranch Planet is. I looked at it, and it says it's a shooting game. The description claims it's a wrestling game. It involves pastel-colored animals and possibly a net? I don't know. But I picked up Dark Legion because it was super cheap, and yeah, it's low-budget Farpoint. Dark Legion came out on PC like last year in early access. Now it's on PS4, and it is a cheeseball first-person shooter, and if it cost any more money, it would be kind of bad. But at the price point, it's kind of amazing. I mean, it's your ship crashes on a planet, and you have to go find parts to fix it while fending off different aliens, which weirdly include minotaurs. The planet is full of day-glow-colored, neon lights everywhere, and yeah, unfortunately, like, the acting is incredibly robotic. In fact, I'm just going to say that the assistant girl just is a robot. It's the only way it makes sense. It's not well rendered. And disappointingly, they took out the complicated reloading. Because the early access PC release, you had a bunch of different guns, and each gun had a different procedure to reload it, where you put in the magazine, you pulled the thing back, or you loaded the rocket into the bazooka. And that was super cool. They took that out. Now you just shake to reload. A little disappointing there. But on the flip side, you can now dual wield, so that's nice. It has smooth movement or teleport movement, but it is incremental turning regardless. What I was really pleased by, though, was some of the little intricacies. Like, the control scheme's a little convoluted. But, like, if you're using the machine gun, if you take your offhand and put it under the machine gun and pull the controller trigger to grab the gun, then it actually steadies your shot. Like, it doesn't shake everywhere. And I was like, that's actually really nice. The game's not great, but it's like, for the price, I hope this gets a US release pretty soon. This is an okay little budget first-person shooter. I'm okay with Dark Legion. Certainly better than Roller Coaster Tycoon Joyride. We are hoping that maybe the curse will be broken this Thursday with Preda Vendetta Rising, which has also been out on Steam for a while. But all the Steam reviews are of the early access version, which apparently had a cash shop and was horribly pay to win and grindy as heck. It has since been patched, but we don't know how ungrindy it is. Preda Vendetta Rising is a third-person Diablo-style game with optional VR. That's right, you can play it outside of VR, you can play with people who are in VR, and yeah, it's just, oh, hey, you can, look around the game. You know what, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with just having the VR support being, hey, it's Diablo, but you can look around. I'm fine with that. The game looks fun, especially because it's going to be a relatively cheap game, and I can play 3-player co-op online, and fingers crossed it's okay. The biggest report is that it's very, very grindy. I can do a little grinding. We will see how that game turns out on Thursday. Fingers crossed that it's good, because I'm on board with it. Let's see. And supposedly it'll have PS4 PC crossplay. I don't want to guarantee that, but that's how it sounds. So yeah, we will see how that turns out. Anyway, I do believe it is time for yet another break, so please enjoy Blood/Water by Grandson here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and please stay tuned for more GameBabble Live. That was Not Good Enough by Hound here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this is GameBabble Live, which we are back. Your video game news information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Anyway, finally looked up what that PixARK thing is. It is apparently a pixel version of Ark Survival Evolved, which conveniently leads us into our next topic. If you can't tell what a game is by the trailers, there's a problem. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and most video game trailers run at 30 to 60 pictures per second. There are literally thousands, millions, possibly even billions of words worth of pictures in every video game trailer, and if you can't figure out what a game is in those billions of words, your trailer has failed at its job. It should just be obvious what the game is. But unfortunately, far too many trailers are... oh, excuse me. Throat strike. Far too many trailers are focusing on, showing off the cinematics and streamers laughing and, haha, this is going to be a fun, good time, without telling anyone what the good time fun even is. Obviously, the example of this would be No Man's Sky, a game which wowed audiences every time it was shown, with its promise of a near limitless number of procedurally generated planets full of procedurally generated creatures that you could visit and do something with, but we weren't really sure what you did. We just saw, walking around on a planet and then flying to another planet and walking around some more, only to find out that's exactly what you do. I bring this up because last week, 2 different games came out that had this problem. Ark Park for the PlayStation VR, and Sea of Thieves for the Xbox One. Now, Sea of Thieves fares much better, and to be fair, I have not played either of these games. I don't think I will be, but while I will definitely say some positive things about Sea of Thieves, Ark Park is a mess. A lot of people were really excited for this. It was announced very early on with the PlayStation VR, and we thought it was just going to be some kind of weird edutainment game where you walked around a dinosaur museum, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you get a gun and there's explosions, it's going to be great! And we're like, wow, wait, what? What are the guns? How? What? Only to get the game and find it to be a complete mess. It uses a nearly indecipherable interface and the most bizarre teleport movement ever, where you point at where you want to go and then you draw a circle to determine where you face. And apparently you collect materials to play a very bare-bones basic dinosaur wave shooter to collect DNA to hatch dinosaurs from eggs to do it again? The game is incredibly poorly made, repetitive, and apparently doesn't even have a good 3D effect, which really hurts it. Remember, in virtual reality, you see things in 3D. There's a sense of, depth, and that adds to a sense of scale. And half the point of Ark Park is, ooh, look at this pretty environment. Ooh, look at this train going through the pretty environment. Ooh, look at the big old dinosaur. It's like all that sense of scale is kind of lost without the 3D effect. So it's weird that that it's so muted to the point where I wonder if it even has one. Maybe that's the secret. They got the game to look so good by just displaying the same image in both eyes and making it completely 2D. Ugh. Either way, it disappointed a lot of people, especially because it's a full-price game. It was released boxed in some countries. Not in America, but in other countries. Ark Park was a full boxed release, and it was yet again an embarrassment for VR, which is certainly pissing off us VR gamers. Sea of Thieves, though, has been a weird one. It's the newest game from Rare, the fine folks who brought us Donkey Kong Country and Banjo-Kazooie and Conker once upon a time, who then got bought out by Microsoft, and they've had a rough time of it. Indeed, most of their talent has left. Indeed, a lot of their new talent had left, and they've been making Kinect games for Microsoft for a while, and this is the first time they've been able to break free of that in a long while. And yeah, Sea of Thieves for the Xbox One is something they've been showing at the past 3 E3s. This was going to be the new Rare classic. This was going to be the game that everyone's going to talk about. And every time we saw it, we were just, so what are you doing it? It's like, okay, first-person pirate game. You play with other players. You sail a boat. You shoot some skeletons. You grab some treasure chests. What do you even do in this game? And the answer is exactly that. You get on a boat, you team up with players, you shoot some skeletons, you grab some chests, and that's about it. The game has finally come out after quite a long time in development, and a lot of people are finding the game incredibly lacking in content, things to do, or even being well thought out. The game has a lot of issues, but at the same time, I can see where the fun is, what the idea was, but unquestionably, 90% of the people who play this game are going to have a hard time. You see, again, I haven't played this game, but I've watched quite a few people stream it, and it's pretty clear that the charm of Sea of Thieves is entirely emergent. It comes just from who you play with and the people you team up with, and just its random happenstance that makes this game good. And thus, 90% of the people who play Sea of Thieves are going to find it to be a dumpster fire. In the game, you create your own pirate, very limited customization though. And yeah, first person, you team up with 3 other players, you hop on a boat, and you take missions, which are usually sail to this island, take out some skeletons, grab a treasure chest. And it's really easy to look at that and go, so this is just a crap first-person shooter. Like, there's not a lot of enemy variety. It's like, there's snakes, sharks, and skeletons. Apparently there's a kraken in there somewhere, but that's something you'd find on your boat. Like, in general, it just kind of comes off as a crap first-person shooter, which is one of the big flaws of making your game first-person, is it loses a lot of its personality and character. So, and making it first-person is definitely a downer to me. Now, a lot of people looked at the game and said, wow, this would be amazing in VR, and indeed it would be, and it's a darn shame that it's not a VR game. But, yeah, just outside of VR, being in first person, it removes character from your game in the most literal sense. You can't see your character, which is kind of irritating since most of the progression in this game is cosmetic. Also a shame because all the character models look terrible. Game looks great, but the character design is just awful in this game. But a lot of people have complained about that to the point where I actually kind of wonder if they'll patch it. I'm going to be saying I wonder if they'll patch it a lot, because a lot of people feel like this is an early access game. All the missions are said to be very samey. There's not a lot to do. It's just get in a boat, go to this island, shoot some skeletons, grab the chest, bring it back. And it's really weird because there's not a lot of loot to get. This is a piracy game. It's about collecting loot, yet you don't get a lot of loot. It's like you find gunpowder and bananas and cannonballs. You don't really find that much interesting stuff. It's a game about being a pirate, and yet it lacks a good loot system, and it's hard to get gold. This is one of the other weird things. You go to these islands, you find treasure maps, you dig up a treasure chest, and you don't get to open it. You have to take the treasure chest back to a harbor, and then you give it to, like, the gold merchant, and then you get your gold, which you get a piddly amount of gold. It's actually weird how little gold you get in Sea of Thieves. And it's very easy to see why people aren't liking this game, especially if you play single player. The people who have enjoyed this game have a group of 2 or 3 friends set up that they play the game with and are on voice chat. You 110% need a crew of friends to play on voice chat. Apparently, when you join the game, you can actually just join into a random person's boat and try to help out, but everyone's talked about how terrible that experience has been. They'll just join in on a sinking ship and die 5 times. They'll join in and the player will be away from the keyboard. They'll join in and it's just a complete mess and borderline impossible to properly enjoy. It's not something you could really go into solo. You need friends. You need a solid group of friends working together. And where the game gets interesting, it seems, is in the boat mechanics, actually sailing the ship. Because, yeah, someone's got to steer the ship, but they can't really see ahead, so you need a lookout, and you need people to adjust the sails to get them to catch the wind in order to sail more efficiently, and you might want to load those cannons with cannonballs ahead of time. And you need someone to check the map and navigate and pull out your compass and use your telescope, and that's the part that seems fun. I see a very... I played a lot of Star Trek Bridge Crew on PlayStation VR, and I look at this and I say, this is very Star Trek Bridge Crew-esque. If you had a good crew, I could see it being fun because you could sail the ship more efficiently with people adjusting the masts and pulling up the anchor and everything with proper timing. And should your boat get hit, you have to rush down and you have to board up the holes, and you could use a bucket to throw the water out of the boat, and thankfully they video gamed it enough that you can actually just take one person with a bucket can actually, like, shovel out all the water in the brig, like, without too terribly much trouble. So it's like, okay, that's good. And if there's one thing that needs to be applauded in Sea of Thieves, it's the water. And I know you're like rolling your eyes. No. This is like a realistic simulation of the sea and the waves, and it looks like the sea and the waves. And when you're underwater and you're looking up, it looks amazing. And the way those waves roll in, and then the storms come in. Last night I was watching a friend of mine play the game, and he got into the middle of a storm, and the compass was spinning. He couldn't tell where he was going. There was rain on the deck. Water was coming in. The ship was tossing and turning. It was like, wow, this is amazing. This is cool. This is the moment you remember from Sea of Thieves, is when you and your friends are desperately trying to navigate through a storm. But 90% or more of people will never experience this. They'll just try to join a game and get killed 5 times on a sinking ship and just give up. Because this game requires you to have friends who are invested, who are literally on board with pirating around. And it's because of, and at times I look at some things and I'm like, I think Rare is completely detached from the situation. Because apparently, here's an interesting piece of news. In the next update, Rare was saying they were going to add in a death penalty. Because right now, when you get killed, there's no consequence. You just respawn back in. And they were like, okay, we're going to make it so that way in order to respawn, it's going to cost some gold. But thanks to fan backlash, they abandoned this. And I now completely understand, because looking at it, they were doing it literally backwards. Like, apparently, it was not... Because, okay, honestly, when you get killed in Sea of Thieves, you should drop some gold. But you don't drop gold in this game. That's the problem. They were actually going to have it where PvP-related deaths didn't cause you to cost any gold. It was only PvE, and you paid the gold to, like, the captain of the Ferry of the Damned, and that is what would resurrect you. No, that's backwards! Being killed in PvE shouldn't cost you anything. It should be the PvP that causes you to drop gold that either you or another player could pick up later. It's a piracy game. It should be about killing people to take their gold. And there's so little ways to get gold. This is one of the biggest problems with the game. This piracy game, there's no gold. You can't get any gold. You only get gold from completing missions, and everything in the game, even though it's mostly just cosmetic, costs these ludicrous amounts of gold. You'd think there was a cash shop in here somewhere with the kind of prices they've got on things. Like, no one can buy anything. No one can make enough money, and the idea of PvE costing you money? No. No. PvP should cost you money. People should be out there killing one another to take their money. It's a piracy game. Why doesn't anyone have any gold? Where are my doubloons? Stupid. I'm looking at this and I'm like, really? This is what you came... Rare, do you even understand the game you made? So that's where we're at with Sea of Thieves. It's getting a lot of backlash, and I can definitely understand that there's some people who really enjoy it. But universally, you need a crew. You need friends. Friends who really want to be pirates and pirate around. Because the core game is a crappy first-person shooter where you pew-pew at skeletons. It is entirely in, controlling the ship and running into, like, another player's ship, perhaps literally. Perhaps you fire cannons at them, shoot other pirates out of cannons at your opponent's ship. I've seen some goofy hijinks where people, get on another person's boat and try to run away with it. Or just get on their boat and weigh anchor to really screw them up, make them sitting ducks. There's so many crazy strategies and plans you can use to, in order to screw with other players. And that's the thing, like, the people who are enjoying it, they're like, this is a hardcore PvP griefing game. That is where the enjoyment is. That's what you have to be on board with to enjoy Sea of Thieves. It's like, well, you are a pirate. And I can see where the charm is. I don't think it's for me, that's for darn sure. I think a lot of other people, not a lot of other people, I think some people are going to really love this game, and a lot of people are going to be very disappointed as they are right now. You need a crew. And the biggest problem is that, as far as I know, this is a full-price boxed release. Yeah, I'm not cool with online-only full-price boxed games. That's a really big hang-up for me, and yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because of course a lot of people are like, oh, this is basically an open beta that you have to pay money for. They'll patch it up and it'll have more content, and maybe next year it'll be a great game. A little wary. because of Rare's last game, which was Kinect Sports Rivals, that also launched very bare bones, and ironically worse than the original Kinect Sports. And they were supposed to have all these online tournaments and DLC outfits and bonus things coming, and they barely delivered on any of that. Mind you, that was Kinect Sports Rivals, so, no one actually bought the game. I guarantee you Sea of Thieves has sold exponentially better than Kinect Sports Rivals. But don't always count on updates. And with how bad the backlash is, I could easily see Microsoft just saying, nah, cut it out, we're done with Sea of Thieves, we'll figure out something else to do. Which, man, Rare has just wound up being the worst purchase for Microsoft. I don't think Rare has actually produced anything worthwhile under the Microsoft label. And again, most of their talent left years ago, more than a decade ago. Rare is really a shell of its former self, and I don't know who I feel worse for, Rare or Microsoft, because I think everyone got screwed in this deal. Anyway, time to kick you back to the music and figure out what I'm going to talk about for this last hour. Possibly roller toasters. I don't know. Anyway, here's Generous by Olivia Holt here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. And GameBabble Live will be back soonish when I figure something out. See you. That was Bossy by Kiki Palmer here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. So, like I've said, it has been a kind of slow news week for video games, weirdly enough, because normally March is quite busy. But we've still got some interesting things. Namely, Puzzle Fighter is rated for PS4, Xbox One, and PC in Europe. Now, the question is this the new smartphone game getting a home console port, or could they be releasing the original Super Puzzle Fighter 2? Considering it's listed as just Puzzle Fighter, it's probably the new smartphone game, and we'll see how that turns out. Moving on further, there has been a lot of talk recently about a announced game called Zanki Zero. It's from the people behind Danganronpa, so they quite delight in misery, and this is a survival RPG where you play as 8 different characters based off of different sins, 7 deadly sins and original sin, and they are all clones which die in 13 days, but you can resurrect them by, popping out another clone. They say 13 days passes in about 2 hours of real life. And yeah, you won't be able to beat the game in a single lifespan. You'll get a game over when all the characters die, and it's going to be brutal. There will apparently characters will die if they eat a food they're allergic to. There's like a bowel movement status, and apparently characters can crap their pants, which causes a offensive odor that will cause high stress levels that can also kill characters. It's gonna be a weird, brutal game of survival with these characters. And I think a lot of people are excited about it because I guess nobody knows misery like the Danganronpa team. So that's certainly a an interesting thing that is in development. The other big news is that it's looking like the Wipeout VR patch may be coming this week. Hopefully, possibly, the dev team has been stringing us along. You see, Wipeout Omega Collection for PlayStation 4, they announced, I don't know if it was Tokyo Game Show or E3, but at one of those trade shows they said, hey, we're going to release a free patch that makes Wipeout Omega Collection playable in VR. And that's something I'm excited about. I picked up Radial G hoping to get a sort of Wipeout VR experience, and Radial G was a dumpster fire. So I'm very excited to play, actual Wipeout in VR. I want a game where I get to go fast. This is one of the problems. So many people are afraid of making people sick in VR that for those of us that don't get sick in VR, we're just left sitting there going, when can I go fast? I want to go fast. So I'm very excited to get to play Wipeout VR, to go at a speed in VR. I hope the sense of speed is good. I really look forward to it. And we are all really, really hoping that that patch might maybe be this week, possibly. It's hard to tell. So that is certainly where we're at with that. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. Like I said, normally the end of March is a really exciting time full of lots of releases because it's the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year, and so if you want your first quarter to look good, you got to get a game out before the end of the first quarter. And so a lot of games that miss the Christmas deadline, they all rush in for that first quarter deadline. But weirdly enough, this time that is not the case. A lot of the great games came out in February, and now we're just kind of sitting here wondering what's next. And yeah, it's kind of just kind of interesting. It's a little bit slow this time, but yeah, WiiWare. The biggest news this week, I think, is the WiiWare shop shut down, and the fact that so many of those games are going to be gone forever, and a lot of people are just like, so what were the good ones? The weird thing, here's a topic. The weird thing about WiiWare was how limited it was. Because one of the things you have to remember is that normally downloadable games, it's like those are the cheaper, lower budget games, right? But with the Wii, there was so much crappy shovelware just released actually boxed on the system that it's like, how do you go even below that? And that was the weird thing. WiiWare couldn't go below that. So WiiWare was actually better than a lot of boxed releases. But it had a very strong restriction. They had a 50 megabyte limit. I remember this actually being rather controversial because, of course, back on 360 and PS3, they did this fantastic port of Sonic CD. And it was available, iOS, Android, PC, PS4, or PS3, Xbox 360. And people were like, why no Wii? And they actually said the Wii could not run the game. And that was because it was like a 350 megabyte file, because it had both soundtracks and the video in high quality. And a lot of people didn't know, WiiWare has a 50 megabyte limit. And that 50 megabyte limit is incredibly stringent and wound up hamstringing a lot of games. Some games, like Space Invaders Get Even, were released episodically, where you had to buy the game in multiple parts. Others went with a more retro aesthetic, like the Konami Rebirth series. Hey, we're able to put in a really nice full game as long as we keep the graphics 16-bit. Also, those were made by M2, and I love M2, but yeah, they kept it small that way. And a lot of games on WiiWare were just short on content. The one that really sticks out in my mind is a game called Snowboard Riot. Snowboard Riot was effectively Snowboard Kids with balance board support. It was a flagrant Snowboard Kids ripoff to the point where it even had the dual item system that I love. And it was a pretty good game. You can play it without the balance board. I was playing it yesterday, and it's like, yeah, this is good, except there's only 4 characters with like 2 outfits each, which are pretty much just palette swaps, and 4 courses that all look the same. They're all just snowy mountain. Apparently it had online play. If anyone was going to play that game online. But yeah, it's incredibly bare bones. It had no story mode. It had no, really character development or anything. It was just, hey, pick a character and race on these 4 courses. And that was it. There was so little content there. It was weird. And that wasn't the only game like that. I remember a couple of games released on WiiWare where it's like, yeah, here's like 4 characters and 4 stages. Yeah, see you, bye. One of the other weird things about WiiWare, though, was how heavily Hudson Soft supported it. Hudson Soft was a creator of Bomberman and Adventure Island and a lot of games on the TurboGrafx, really. And they got bought out by Konami, but while Konami had them, they made a lot of WiiWare games. The most notable one being a 3D remake of Alien Crush, which was a quite infamous pinball game for the TurboGrafx 16. And they were like, hey, here's a fancy 3D WiiWare remake. And now that I think of it, these are also games we will never see again because Hudson is owned by Konami. And what are the chances of Konami being like, oh yeah, we should re-release that on Switch? I mean, they might. Konami's kind of waking up. They managed to release Metal Gear Survive for whatever that's worth. They're putting out Super Bomberman R on other systems. And we've got Zone of the Enders 2 in 4K with VR support coming in September. So we'll see how it goes. But Konami's kind of a shell of their former selves, and we can't count on them to do much of anything, and they do a lot of dumb things, and nobody likes them. It's actually quite interesting seeing how far Konami has fallen very, very quickly. If you're unfamiliar, basically, Metal Gear Solid 5 was rushed to completion. Purportedly, it was never actually completed. Hideo Kojima, the maker of the Metal Gear series, was fired. The conditions at Konami were reported as being much like a police state. It was just very unpleasant to work there. Lots of people were shuffled off to the pachinko machine factory to work as janitors. It was a very abusive environment for their employees, and pretty much everyone that worked at Konami quit, and Konami just started focusing on pachinko machines. Now, if you're wondering about pachinko machines, the reason why those are so incredibly popular in Japan is it's a form of legal gambling in a country where gambling is illegal. You actually can't gamble in Japan. But what you do is you play the pachinko machines, and their payout is in pachinko balls. And then you take those pachinko balls and you exchange them for prizes. And then you look for the Yakuza guy outside of the pachinko parlor to sell it, who probably owns the pachinko parlor, to sell him back the prize, and he gives you money, and that's how you make money with pachinko machines in Japan. It's a very open secret, considering I know this. And that's why pachinko is so popular. Chances are Konami was probably bought out by the Yakuza. I would not be surprised. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick break. So here is I Got It Made by Delusa here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. And I'll be back after a break with something. Anyway, enjoy the song and see you shortly here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse. That was Rock Bottom by Haley Steinfeld featuring DNCE here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. So as I said, a little bit of a slow news week. Biggest news was the WiiWare shutdown, and a lot of people being disappointed by Sea of Thieves. Though, I can simultaneously see the appeal and see what went horribly wrong. As I said earlier, it looks like Sea of Thieves is almost completely pointless to play if you don't have friends to play with. It would be terrible single player, and trying to join up with random people online would just be a mess. There's not a lot of really built-in content, and most of the enjoyment of the game is very emergent. Even still, the game has issues with it being nearly impossible to collect gold. The progression system is questionable, with not a lot of progression outside of cosmetics. And just there's not a lot to do, but it can be amazing with friends just because of some of the situations you all find yourself in. But yeah, there was that. And so not too terribly much to report on. So I looked around. I'm trying to figure out when Omega Labyrinth Z finally comes out, the game that is going to be illegal to sell in the country that is translating it. It's being translated in the UK, and the game has been found to be too indecent. So that's entertaining. But the company is apparently releasing 2 smaller games, publishing rather. One is a game called Platigo, a super platform game maker for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, which is, well, a Mario Maker knockoff, pretty much. Hey, make your own platform game. No programming required. You can put in your own sprites, too. It'll be super fun. It's like, we'll see how it turns out. But the one that's really surprising me is this All-Star Fruit Racing, which is a, random kart racer. People are driving around in fruit vehicles, but it's actually looking pretty solid. I'm liking the visuals I see. Looks like it has a really good sense of speed. I have a feeling this is really inspired by Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed, really trying to crank up the sense of speed. Just surprisingly good presentation for an utterly random kart racing game out of nowhere. And yeah, P-Cube will be releasing that. It's made by a company called 3D Clouds, and P-Cube will be releasing that on PS4, Xbox One, and Switch in July. It's currently available on PC via Steam Early Access. So I was able to look up some early access gameplay footage. Legitimately surprised at how nice that was looking. That might actually, be a thing. But unfortunately, that's about all I've got for this week with GameBabble. I'm excited about Sweary's The Good Life. Kickstarter is up for that, and I've got my fingers crossed that it turns out good. And speaking of Kickstarters, next month it is looking like Shantae Half Genie Hero will be getting its last update that adds the costume mode, and an Ultimate Edition will be released, a nice physical release on PS4 and Switch with a bunch of bonus content. And I'm pretty excited for that, even though I already have the game, thanks to being a backer that backed it for a ridiculous sum of money, because I love the Shantae series. Either way, all sorts of good times all around. We'll see what next week brings, because who knows, the video game industry can be a crazy, crazy place. But anyway, I do believe that about wraps up our show for this week. Tune in next Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. for more GameBabble Live, and we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll be able to report back to you on how this Preda Vendetta Rising turns out. Let me tell you right now, on the PSVR subreddit, it's pretty amusing, because, of course, a lot of people are looking at the PC reviews, but all the PC reviews are based on, the early access version, and the game's changed a lot since then. And some people are getting too excited. They're like, oh, it'll be like Moss, but it's 50 hours long. And others are like, oh, it's just going to be a grind fest, because it is supposed to be kind of grindy. It's like, yeah, well, Diablo's a grind fest. So what do and this looks like Diablo in VR. It's like, not a lot of people are recognizing the game is VR optional. You can play it outside of VR, and that's good, because it means it'll be easier to do the 3-player co-op in it. Anyway, though, thank you so much for listening. Hope you tune in next week. I'll try to let you know how Preda turns out, 'cause I'm pretty excited for that. And actually, it's already out in Australia, so it should actually be out tomorrow instead of Thursday. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, this is Jell. This has been GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. And next up is Love Me to Death by No Resolve here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Catch you next week.